Guys, this is Greg Jones, or 0779 for dragthebar.com, and today I'm going to be bringing you another part in the Tools for the Trade video series, looking at the Holdem Resources calculator. And this time, we're going to be taking a look at some more situations that are kind of interesting. Not going to be so much slide based, but I really want to talk just work with the calculator, work with Sit and Go Wizard, and see if we can derive some other interesting points by doing the calculations. So it's going to be a little bit looser format than normal in terms of the PowerPoint slides, but I think you're going to find this really interesting. You take a look at the calculator. We've been looking at it since last time, and I want to do a couple analyses. I want to look at the situation where we're around the 160 blind level here. I know people are probably wondering why I'm still sort of sticking with like the full tilt blind structure rather than poker stars. I find that it's just a little bit cleaner for analysis. You can do the same things by looking at effective blind level in terms of the poker stars levels with antes, but I just think the math is a little bit cleaner, and full tilt's coming back, so it shouldn't be totally useless. It's also good for sites like Merge, which don't use antes. So we're going to take a look at the situation seven-handed where we've got 160 and 80 blind, and we've got even stacks of roughly 2,000 chips. And I want to look at the situation where we're going to either raise, and here we'd sort of be thinking about raising to 2.25, and let's take a look at that. And then let's also do a calculation where we're going to look at just open pushing. I really want to look at the button. And we're going to take a look at this, and we're going to take a look at Sit and Go Wizard. And we're going to figure out how we can get some wider ranges than what Sit and Go Wizard suggests. You're going to hear guys talking at the mid stakes and above about just playing much wider ranges than what's really recommended in terms of PBJ and what Sit and Go Wizard really shows you. And I just want to kind of give you some analysis about where this comes from and how to develop a range like that. Assuming you're playing like good, fairly tight players in the blinds, 12 blinds deep, they're going to be calling pretty tight still. They're not going to be in like wide calling situations or dynamics too often. So we can just go ahead and run this again and just do push fold. And finish that one. And you can see down here I've also got Sit and Go Wizard up, and I've modeled the same situation with a decent edge at the 8160 level, and putting in some ranges for the blinds that look okay. These may be a little bit tight or a little bit loose actually, considering we're sort of looking what type of players we're looking at, but they're not going to change our range too much here. You can see. So, somewhere 11 to 13% is sort of what it recommends. And now you can see that from the button here, the Holdem Resources calculator is recommending to shove 33.9% of our range. That's obviously much wider than the calculator. And to min raise, let's go down and take a look at this one. 27.5%. Let's go ahead and see if we can set Sit and Go Wizard up to a 0 edge. I think there is actually some edge in the Holdem Resources calculator, but what you can see is even setting it to a 0 edge doesn't really get you this wide. So why is it that wide, and what can we learn? And we're going to just sort of talk about that. And then we've got a couple other topics I want to talk about. So, all right. So, hand 9 is min raising to 2.25 times the big blind, and hand 10 is open shoving. You can see, all of these bolded hands in here are ones that the calculator thinks should be part of your ranges, and some of them are obviously borderline. 10-9, Jack-9, Queen-9, these things are zeros. King-9, 10-9, it's actually got in their range because they're bolded, but I wouldn't recommend using those hands. And you can see that this is a pretty darn wide range it advocates, and I think that these kinds of ranges in the right situations can actually be really useful for shoving. Um, but we have to find something that's sort of in between. We have to find something that pure value type shoves versus shoves that are going to be wider versus raises. And so what I want to go through, I want to do is I want to pull up the spreadsheet again, and we're going to do the same analysis we did last time, but this time we're going to look at a much wider range and sort of see what we can come up with. So let's see. The raising range is 27.5%. And you're going to see the shoving range is actually wider. 33.9%. And you're going to see the raise call range, and let's just do raise call against the big blind because he's the one who's most likely to re-steal over us. 12.7%. Alright, let's delete these. And you use the same real methodology. You go range by range and just take a look at these. So for example, this is saying that we can raise fives and above, but we can shove any pocket pair, and fives are much more profitable here. So shoving pocket pairs, twos through fours, I always think that's a better strategy because there's no post-flop play, and they're low, and you're better to just kind of drive it in with those. Is there a range where it changes over? Nines are still more profitable to raise call than to shove. Let's see, eights are 0.66. Eights are more profitable to raise than to shove. Sixes is 0.36. So sixes are less profitable to raise than to shove. So I would make our shoving range something like 2-2 plus, and then our raising range something like 2-2 to 6-6, and then sevens plus. This is, if I'm not getting these numbers exactly right, this is more for illustrative purposes than for getting the exact right thing. But you're going to see here then the min raise probably becomes more profitable. So aces are definitely more profitable to min raise than to shove. Here they're 0.3 or 3.3 versus 2.2. Let's look at jacks. Jacks are more profitable to min raise, and so some of these are ones that you're going to call. You're going to min raise and then call, and so we can find that out from this range. It looks like raise call is everything from pocket fives and up. So actually your raise call range here is going to be sevens and up because we're going to be shoving twos through sixes. Here, twos, and we're not going to have any raise fold in that. So we can build up these ranges, and I would say, from a global standpoint, because our min raise range is actually less wide than our shoving range, it's going to turn out that we're going to have problems polarizing this range because a lot of times if this range is wider than, if the shoving range is wider than the min raise range, a lot of the monsters are going to be more positive EV to min raise, but we're not going to have a lot of the weak hands that are more positive to min raise. So you can see here, for example, like 0.16 for ace 2 suited shoving versus 0.02 for min raising. So you can see there in the suited aces, it's weaker. The weakest hands are not min raisable. So when I'm building this range, then I might say to myself that I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit of equity from some of these hands, like the weak aces, and go ahead and min raise them. Now, the reason I want to do that with, especially with suited aces, but with low aces in general, is when you're shoving those hands, um, you're going to find that a lot of times the hands that people are going to call you with are going to dominate you. And because you're sort of raising on the button, let's say first in, and you're getting re-steals out of the big blind, you can see here you can't profitably call anything below ace seven or ace nine, ace seven suited or ace nine. But those are hands that could still easily take down the pot with a min raise. Or when I say min raise, I just mean standard 2.25 at this point, slightly over min raise. And I really like the idea of having the polarized range here because what that's going to do is that's going to allow you to get out of trouble. It's going to allow you to not have so many of those hands that you just open shove them because Sit and Go Wizard says you can open shove them, and then get trapped by an ace queen and be dominated and really be in big trouble. So to me, there's some extra value, even though the overall number in Hold'em resources is a little bit lower here. I'm going to polarize my range on those suited aces. So, for example, let's say that I only wanted to raise hands that like ace 2 through ace 5 suited. All right. Ace 2 to ace 5 suited. Ace 2 suited to ace 5 suited. And then it says we can shove any of those, and we can raise any of those, and we can raise call ace 7 and above. All right, now let's look at the upper level ones. Ace King suited is going to be 1.46. So it's more profitable to raise call Ace King suited. Ace Queen suited 1.19, 1.07. Just go down through here. Ace Jack is more profitable. Ace 10 suited 6.3, 5.7. Ace 10 suited is not more profitable to raise call. So I'm going to put Ace 10 suited. It's going to be a shoving hand. And then let's go down to Ace 6 suited. And let's also put in Ace Jack suited plus. Widen this a little bit here. All right, now we've got a range that deals with the fact that it's polarized, and it's still getting most of the profit from shoving those low suited aces, but it allows us to kind of get away from really trashy ones. And then also we're going to be able to play in position with these ace 2 through ace 5, which I kind of like because these also can make wheels and flushes and that kind of thing. So they don't have very little value. They actually have a decent amount of value post flop, and we could get some monsters where we could play them profitably post flop. So then I'd make this range Ace Jack suited plus, and I'd make the raise fold range Ace 2 to Ace 5 suited. Ace 2 suited, Ace 5 suited, and I would make this range Ace 6 suited to Ace 10 suited. So I really wanted to make sure that I made this point when we're talking about these ranges where in late position this kind of thing happens, because you're going to find that these aren't like naturally polarized ranges for stealing, and it's going to be really helpful to sort of look at each one of these and figure out how you want to do it, because a lot of times strictly playing by the numbers with ICM just doesn't make a lot of sense, and you need to think more about your strategy than just running simulations and sit and go wizard and trying to figure out whether it totally makes sense or not. And I think when you sort of start to work with ranges like this, you start to get the feeling for the most profitable lines, not just for a line that works in an ICM calculator. So now with the rest of these ranges, what we need to start to do is figure out what else we want to be playing from this position, if anything. And you can see here from the shoving ranges that there's a lot of other garbagey type hands that we could add into our shoving range that are just not profitable from a raise fold standpoint. And even if they were, they're not as profitable as simply shoving. So like King Queen suited here is a profitable shove, but it's less profitable to raise. And so I guess let's see. Aside from maybe adding like King Queen suited, King Jack suited, and King Queen off into your raise call range, mostly everything else here now I would just say you can just go ahead and open shove. And I think I might not even put those into the raise call range unless I really felt like we were really unbalancing it with a lot of open shoving. But then, so what I would do then is I would start to build these out and say, okay, well, I really want to be shoving hands like, maybe I really want to be shoving my suited connectors, just to get those in play so that my range is a little bit unpredictable, and so I've got some hands in my range that I know play strong and have some good implied odds. And then maybe you want to just go ahead and set like an edge and say, I really want to only play hands that are like 0.1 or better. So you could go ahead and play 9-8 suited up. You could follow this line up: Queen 8 suited, Jack 8 suited, 10-8 suited, 9-8 suited. Those are all good. Maybe shove King 7 suited, and then that'd be it. So you can start to look at that like middle stuff that you want to shove as a as sort of how you want to build this out and finish the range. And then again, you have to look at some of these situations. So like Queen 8 suited, is not going to show up real well in sit and go wizard. It's saying that's a little bit negative here. So you have to be aware that some of this range you're shoving in equilibrium might be negative EV or slightly negative EV, but you can see this one hovers right around 0 and sit and go wizard, and we've got our edge high. So maybe we're in a really tough game where we're not taking an edge on any of our shoves, and this is going to sort of start to approach the range that we could get from sit and go wizard if we got it really wide. Here it's got King 9 suited down to 10-9 suited, 9-8 suited. So maybe this is a range that you like as far as just a wider shoving range. And then you can go ahead and in your PBJ sheet you can have your wide shoving range and your regular shoving range, and that's or this hybrid approach and your regular shoving range. And then you just start to look and you say, okay, well, I've got two tight blinds, I've got two guys who are, I've got a tough table, and so I'm going to switch from one set of ranges to the other because it makes more sense for my table makeup in that game. So that's how I develop a late position shoving strategy using the Holdem Resources calculator. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some other interesting things. One is I'd like you to consider for a minute what you could actually use this calculator for. So for exactly for 9-mans, one really nice situation might be to use this on the bubble. You can easily go ahead and set up bubble situations in this. It's going to be taking into account the stack-based dynamic and things, so you can look at some archetypal situations like, what if I'm on the bubble and there's a big, middle, small, and micro stack, or two mid stacks and two small stacks, that kind of thing. How and what's another thing we can do with this is we can look at heads-up situations. So let's look at the raise fold for a 9-man, and let's just say that it's like 6,500 chips. 6,500 chips versus 7,000 chips. And let's assume that we're now super deep, maybe around 15 blinds deep. Let's say we're at like the 200, 400 level. So that's 1,350 chips, 200, 400 level. You can look at min raising and then this allow for open shove. And this is going to give you some ranges that you can raise, that they should be 3-betting you, and that you can call 3-bets. Now this min raise, this calculation where it's giving us 0.1%. You can see it's telling us that it really prefers, even in this situation where we're deep, to just open shove pocket twos. I wouldn't really worry about this. This is that extra checkbox that we checked. So we can go ahead and minimize this one. I'm really more concerned about the raise 3-bet call. And so you can see, like, here's a good, really strong Nash-based min-raising range from the small blind against a good opponent. So if we're playing a good opponent heads up, we might want to use this for min-raising and then checking if they shove over us what we can call and that sort of thing. So you can make lots of neat charts with it. Let's look at a situation where we're still, let's say we're like still 7-handed. And now everybody's at 1928 chips. One, two, three, four, five, six, 7. And let's say we've gotten to a situation where we're now 5 blinds deep. And we're probably just going to be kind of like, if we're going to min raise here, actually let's say we're at like 150, 300. And we're in a situation where we don't want to do anything other than min raise. Sorry for the delay here. These things take a little bit of time. It's worth being patient. What you'll see is that this is going to be a really interesting situation. There's a dynamic, there's a crossover where the calculator is going to start to tell us in our ranges for min raising that they're not very wide anymore. If we run the same calculation with push fold, same chips, same stacks, 7, 8 blinds deep, something like that. And this one calculates a lot faster because push fold's just an easier calculation for it to do, I think. You can see that the under the gun range for min raising is 13%, for shoving is 16%. There's a crossover point where min raising becomes suboptimal. Let's look at the button, 38% to shove versus 13% for min raise. No, I'm sorry, 32%. So you can see that there's a crossover point where it becomes suboptimal to min raise over shoving. And that's sort of the motivation for, at some point, like 8, 7 blinds deep, I would just start thinking in terms of using this calculator for just looking at open shoving situations versus sit and go wizard and not really worrying about the min raise anymore. Let's do one more. Let's jack the blinds up really high. Let's say we're at 400, 200. Actually, we could even say 6. Let's say we're at like 400, 200. You're going to find that the range for open raising starts to drop down towards 0. We might have to, in this situation, make it a little bit unrealistic to show that really going to 0. But you're going to find that this range, starts to close down. Actually, I think this is happening because think it might also be because we got so many players in the game still. Let's try it with 13,500 divided by 5. 2,700 chips. 5 players with 2,700 chips. The ranges are still pretty wide, but I think also what might be going on is the profitability of those individual hands may be shifting. So let's look at allowing open shove. And we're going to see the open shoving range versus the min raising range all on one hand, or all on one tree here, and that'll give us an idea of which range is much bigger than the other. So here they're saying min raise to 800. And then they're saying open shove to 2,700. And you can see here that the min raise range that it thinks is most profitable is really only monsters, and the plus some of this other stuff, which is really right around 0, and I wouldn't include that. Versus the open shoving range being 17% instead of 5%. You can see all this stuff is more profitable than probably just about aces, ace, king, kings, and queens. So you can see what happens is this really motivates the idea that, as the blinds go up and as our stack gets shorter, we're not going to want to be min raising anymore like we do in that kind of awkward area in the tournament, and we should just revert back to a push fold strategy. Now maybe that push fold strategy ought to be a little bit looser or a little bit tighter than what sit and go wizard suggests based on your game types, and we can find that out with this calculator. But that's really showing again this concept that we're shifting away from the min raising type hands and moving to the open shoving. So that's basically it. I guess this is what, a 6 blind, around 6 blinds deep, but that's going to start to happen much earlier. So you can see this calculator is a really nice calculator. It can do all sorts of things. I can see this being really a crucial element for looking at games that have low ROIs and thin edges, like heads-up games, 6 max hyper turbo games. Especially, that's actually why I got interested in this, is looking at heads up and looking at 6 max games. But you can learn a lot about it for 9-mans and 18-mans too, because the modern play style is sort of moving towards this idea of playing looser and in late positions and shoving wider and opening wider ranges from late positions to try to exploit that just general tightness that's developed in good players through the games throughout the last 5 or 6 years. So I really find this calculator to be sort of one of the best tools out there right now. I think it's one that you should get in your arsenal. It's about $4 a month. The way it's being done right now is through a license, and I think if you buy the 18-month license, it's only about $4 a month. So it's a real cheap investment, and it's sort of paying back one of the guys in the industry who's been giving out a lot of free poker tools for a long time. So I think that's also a worthwhile way to look at it. So I don't plan to do any more videos that are sort of exclusively about this calculator and exclusively about 9-max games, but I do plan to use this a lot in the upcoming videos that I'm going to be doing on Hyper Turbo 6-max games and heads-up Hyper Turbos. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you get this piece of software, start using it, and really kind of learn where it's useful in evaluating your game, and then when we start to use this thing in the future, hopefully you'll be really comfortable with it. So with that said, this is Greg Jones or 0779 saying good luck at the tables.